8 a.m. and it's already 30 degrees. Whew. Okay.
Well, welcome to Strengthen and Lengthen, the first for the year. Thank yourself for showing up. Today's class is going to follow the usual format. We're going to use a basic bath towel, whatever resistance bands you have at hand, and the trusty foam roller. We are going to have a little bit of a focus. Not every Strengthen and Lengthen class has a body focus. Sometimes we do a bit of a mixed bag, but today we're going to focus on the legs and the pelvis. And this is because as aerialists, we often neglect the lower body, and it's super important, especially as we get older, and if you want to have a sustainable practice, that you have set up a good base, and the pelvis is where everything stems from, the spine and then the upper body included. So it's important that we don't neglect the lower body. So I want you to start by grabbing your resistance bands. If you've got a banded one, awesome. If you've got just a regular length, turn it into a band. And we're going to do a psoas march just to set up the pelvis this morning. So lying down and popping your band, doesn't really matter if it's light or heavy, popping it around the ankles like so. So just pop your feet on the floor to start off with. Knees at roughly 90 degrees. We'll just do a couple of little spinal curls up just to warm up everything. Tucking the tailbone under, sending it towards the backs of the knees, all the way up to a full hip bridge and curling down one vertebrae at a time. Just 3 of those to start this morning. If this is the first thing you've done for your aerial practice this year, well done. Congratulations on showing up. All right, so for our psoas march, what we're going to do is lift the knees into a tabletop position, which is knees stacked over the hips and heels at 90 degrees to the floor. And what I want you to do is just press outward gently on the band and get a sense of your pelvis feeling flatter and heavier on the floor. So press away first and then try to keep one leg exactly where it is as you stretch the other one forward. So the action is out and around and back to where you start. So this is not so much about cranking the hip flexor, bending the knee towards your body. It's more about flattening and broadening the pelvis, activating our hip rotators, and then lengthening the hip flexor away from the body and back out. So let's just do a total of 5 or 6 on each leg. Nice and slow, slower is better. Just as a gentle way of connecting to our abdominals as well as our pelvic and spinal posture today. And for those of you who have done SNL with me last year, you'll know that I pretty much always start with a pelvic exercise because the pelvis is the base of the spine and everything stems from there. And it's important when you're doing these exercises, I'll point out some of the things that we usually do to compensate, other muscles that sometimes take over, and really just focusing on the quality and the control of the movement. Beautiful. Okay, grab your foam roller. You're going to set yourself up in a similar position with the heels balanced on the foam roller, not too close, heels not too close to your butt. You're going to rest one leg on the foam roller and bring the other knee just actively towards your chest. So this is really important. We're going to take our arms overhead to mimic aerial activity. So much of aerial activity is arms overhead, not down here on the floor where we always do our exercises. So arms overhead, actively lift one knee towards your chest as far as it'll go. Tuck the tailbone and then pressing all the way up until your hips are lifted as high as they can go. Notice where you feel the work coming from and then curl down for a hold. If you need to, stretch out the leg in between reps, that's fine. So we want to try and keep the foam roller where it is, and we want to try and get the hips up nice and high, but keeping the lumbar spine nice and level. So notice if your hip bones start to tilt or tip in either direction, keeping the arms overhead, and just noticing that extra stability that's required through the rib cage there. If you start to feel it's too much in your hamstrings, you can take the foam roller further away or further towards you. Positioning is related to purpose when it comes to exercises. and I try not to be too prescriptive. As long as you're fulfilling the purpose of an exercise, then we're good to go. Again, we're just going to do one of each exercise in today's class, so we really don't want to focus on the numbers of how many repetitions. I just want you to really zone in on your body, notice where you're feeling the work as the heat kind of builds up in the muscle, and correct positioning. Swapping sides now. Have a feel of what the exercise feels like after you've done the first set. Often we get this kind of effect where the second side is easier or harder, depending. And also pop the hands down by your sides on the mat and feel the difference when your arms are able to stabilize through the floor and the rib cage. If you want to make it a little bit harder, take the hands all the way straight up to the ceiling. So we're focusing on hip extension and hip flexion at the same time. This is a Jen Crane exercise. If you guys know Jen Crane from the States, she's really good physiotherapist. And this is focusing on accessing hip extension on one side as well as active hip flexion through the other. Again, really important for circus, because in circus we're not often using the hip in extension at the same time. We're often splitting, and we want to have that symmetry through the pelvis. Last repetition on your second side. And relax. Good stuff. Okay, grab your bath towel. Turn your towel into a nice square, a nice heavy square, and we're going to use it like a hacky sack. So we're going to pop it on the inside of one ankle like so. Your top leg is going to come over onto the floor into a position that allows you to be nice and balanced and stacked. So see if you can line up your elbow with the bottom hip, hips relatively stacked, and extend your bottom leg so that it's off the floor. So already getting a nice little Jane Fonda kind of burn. We're going to come up and hold it as high as you can without a cramp. And then you're going to come back onto both elbows and try to keep that leg turned out and pull the leg in as close as you can. Knee is driving towards the armpit. Yeah, so we're using turn out to pull the leg in, dropping down, stepping across. So the whole exercise goes pulse, hold, 2, 1, open up, lift the hip off the ground, draw the leg in, knee drives towards armpit. This is active turn out and adductor. Good, let's do some pulses in the center. 3, 2, 1, and then back to the top of the rep. Up as high as you can go, hold it for 3, 2, 1. Use the other leg to lift the hip up, draw the knee in. Stretch the leg out. Hopefully nobody's lost the towel yet. Drop it down. Last rep. Take it all the way down to the floor to feel your neutral position. Squeeze and lift the ankle up as high as you can towards the ceiling. Hold for 3, 2, 1. Lift the hip up. Draw it in. And stretch it out. And relax. We're going to do some towel assisted stretching later in class to get into that sort of pectineus and groin area. So we'll do our adductor stuff now. Balancing it on the inside of the other leg. Let's go. I'm going to demonstrate 1 rep for the recording, and then I'm coming to the camera to check out your guys' form. So leg goes across to the front. Set yourself up nice and straight. Leg comes up. Hold that first one for 5 or 6 seconds so that you can really feel any compensation that your body is doing before you lift it up, and then draw it in. Notice side to side differences. Notice fatigue. Notice whether your execution is better on that second set. Noticing is a skill as well. Lift it up. Hold for 3. Guide the knee along that sort of horizontal plane. keeping that turn out. Guys, in the live class, I want you to do some extra pulses now that we're in the middle of the set, and keep going. We're going to work a little bit on some microbend exercises. If you guys are not aware of the microbend, it sort of came into fashion about a decade ago. It's a word that describes not being able to fully stretch the back of the knee so that the leg is straight and point the toe. And this is not a circus problem, this is not a new problem. This comes from any kind of sport where you've got to have body tension and leg tension. You have this anatomical dilemma. So you have two muscle groups that are in opposition. So starting with your banded band, starting with your looped band, pop it over both of the shins till around about mid shin. We're going to turn side on into a split stance with the feet, and we're just going to practice stretching the back leg using the quadricep muscle here, the thigh muscle, just to kind of wake up, okay, what muscle is it that stretches the back of the knee? Once you've got that, I want you to feel the bend in the front leg, nice flat foot. Feel the stretch with the back leg, nice straight leg. And if you're hypermobile, try to just lock it out so it's straight and strong, not overextended. And then I want you to try and put all your weight between your feet and do a releve. So coming up on your toes. Front leg should stay bent. Tension on the band stays constant. And then drop the heels back down. Bend it in, just so that you've got some contrast. Bend the back leg in, wobble it out. Full contraction. Weight between the legs. See if you can keep that knee straight as you go on releve and stretch the arch. I love this exercise because it's combining those two antagonistic movements, but it's also taking toe scrunch out of the equation. So it means that we're not getting any kind of cramp or anything happening from trying to point your toe. We're just pointing the ankle joint. Called plantar flexion. And already you should start to get a pretty strong sense of just how hard the quadricep actually has to work to maintain a straight leg line. So it's pretty reasonable and understandable that it's hard to keep that knee locked out when we go to extend or point the arch of the foot. That's 4 reps. Let's go for 5 on each side. And if you're struggling to extend the ankle without the knee buckling, you can put a little bit more weight in the front leg and just really focus on keeping that back knee straight. Swapping legs when you're ready. 5 on the other side. Grab your towel actually and your foam roller for this one. So pop your towel just in a position that gives you some padding. You're going to get into your 90-90 lunge position. And all I want you to focus on, hands are going to be on the end of your foam roller above your head, okay? So already nice and lengthened through the spine. And we're not going to tip into a yucky lunge like this. We're going to stay nice and upright. See if you can lift your heel off the ground. Press the palms inward towards the end of the roller to stabilize. And then keeping that pelvis without having an arch through the lower back, keeping that pelvis tipped under, heel squeeze, and lift off. Have a go. Again, we're not focused on numbers of repetitions for today's class. This is about purpose and positioning. If it feels really difficult, you can also lunge forward until your weight is sort of between ankle and knee, and then squeeze the glute as hard as you can. Think about tucking that pelvis under, and then just take a bit of weight out of the toe. It's really about just getting used to what it feels like to use the glute and the hamstring with the hip already in extension. Yeah? If you need to use your foam roller for support on your opposite side, so if you're lunging forward with the right, pop your left hand down. You can also do that, but see if you can stretch those fingers up to the ceiling and focus on all of those things. I know I've got a really big side to side difference for this one. So if you haven't already, swap sides. And when I started this class, I think it was the middle of 2025, I really wanted to create a class that was, physiotherapy driven, circus specific, easy accessories, stuff that you can do in a 25-minute class. But the other thing that we really found is just focusing on how much we don't really know the purpose and the positioning of a lot of the stretches and the exercises that we're doing. So this is great to see you guys showing up and executing in the new year. Good job. Last couple of reps, and if you've got some feedback, hold on to it and we'll talk about it at the end of class. Grabbing your foam roller still and standing up. We're going to do a heel squeeze scooter, which is maybe not new to some of you. The easiest way is to lift your leg and pass the foam roller underneath. Pop it right up near the back of your glute and then see if you can squeeze your heel to make it stay there. Yeah, so if you have a super long foam roller, just put it sideways and create the same squeeze. If it feels really tight back here on the Achilles, you can wedge it just underneath the mid hamstring and the calf and hold it like so. The idea is we balance on one leg with a slight soggy bend through the knee, lean forward at the torso, and we lift the knee as high as we can, keeping that squeeze. And I want you to notice, when does it feel hard to maintain that squeeze? Don't worry if it feels a bit uncoordinated first couple of times. If this is a new exercise for you, it's a tricky one. Yeah, so keep that soggy bend, arms out for balance or holding on to something if you like. Drive the knee up and notice. Just notice, what does your body want to do instead? Where does it feel hard? Can you actively squeeze, or does it feel like hard work through the hamstrings and the glutes? Taking it all the way down until the knees are side by side, and then taking it back up. So think of this as conditioning or prehabilitation for all the different ways that we use our muscles in aerial. Remember to swap sides. All right, coming down, we're gonna do clam pops. Clams is this exercise here where we open the knees and keep the heels connected. A clam pop is where we lift the hip at the same time. Today we're gonna do a variation. So we're gonna start with the knees, line them up if you've got a little yoga mat, or if you can just kind of eyeball it, sense that your knees are directly in front of your hips and that your heels are coming out so there's a parallel towards you. You can even face a wall, 90-90, and opening the knee and then coming up on the hand. So this is staying on the elbow for this variation. So opening the knee and then putting your weight into the front shin and pushing your hips forward. Yep, so for positioning's sake, just really try to keep that 90-90 and notice how your weight has to travel forward in order to be able to lift that bottom hip off of the mat. And little hold at the top because we love our holds and we love our pulses. Just noticing where the work is coming from when we're keeping it to that strict 90-degree angle. It should feel much more closed than your normal clams, yeah? They're normally out here at 45. We want it at 90. It should feel hard. You should feel the weight having to shift forward onto the elbow. And coming up. Good. Stay on that side. And now draw a straight line from the back of your heels towards your pelvis and up towards the shoulder. And then setting yourself up on the hand for this one if you can. So coming up so that you're already lifted, open the knee. This knee is gonna stay open. And then we're gonna drop the hip. And again, just noticing when I keep my pelvis and my hip bones level and side on, where does the work, where do I start to feel the heat in the muscle building up for that one? Should feel slightly further back towards the hip. Not for everyone maybe, but for me certainly does when we do it at the 45. Now we're going to set ourselves up in a straight line. So imagine a wall is directly in front of you, going down chest, hips, knees, only heels are behind you. So this is our Ariel mermaid kind of position. Now do the clam and feel where the work is happening on the top hip. Just a couple of knee opening and closing, and now pushing up. Just a small hip float on the bottom. So this should feel very different. You should really start to feel the work happening from further behind in the glute med. And if this is new for you, don't worry too much about whether the leg is lifted and closing every time. That's why I do call it clam pops, but you can keep it lifted or close it separately. It's up to you. Just get used to that. And now that you've done a few reps in each of those ranges, go back to the first one and see how it feels. 90 degrees with the knees in front of you. Can you sense the difference? This is really important for doing exercises. We want to be connected to the purpose. Getting yourself really used to setting yourself up correctly. And noticing we all have our favorites. We all have exercises that we prefer. Third position, heels behind you. Should feel different. All right, other side. Now that you know what you're doing, focusing on control and tempo. Let's do 5 full slow reps in each position. 5 and relax. So 2 of them, we have the elbow down. This middle one here, where we have our legs, our heels in line with the pelvis, we come up on the hand if that's accessible to you, and we want to practice opening the knees together at the same time. Really staying lifted, so we're not sinking into that shoulder, really pushing out of the floor. And if you haven't done this kind of lower body workout in a while, you might have a little bit of delayed muscle soreness tomorrow, but you will really find that these kind of exercises targeting the hip muscles are so good for turnout, leg line, and also just for endurance on the fabric apparatuses. Last 5 reps, elbow back down, in line with the knees. Practice opening the top leg a few times, and then little hip lift on the bottom side. 5 slow and controlled reps. Very nice. All right, grab your towel. Ooh, dab the sweat. Roll it up into a log so that you've got a nice bit of circular resistance, and we're going to do a very shallow pancake position. So if you've got a yoga mat, this is where I usually tell people to line up your coccyx, your tailbone at the back of one side and your heels at the front of the other side. So very shallow, what we call a pancake straddle. Yep, and then pop the towel or the log under, so it's just off of your sit bones, not in the center, but just off to one side. And what I want to focus on positioning. So as you rotate, let's just keep our hands like this to keep it nice and true. Rotate to face the leg where the towel is under, leaning forward without curling through the lower spine. So think leaning forward, reaching with the chest until you feel the curve of that towel pushing up into the muscles of the hamstring and the groin. And then staying at that level, see if you can kind of roll through to the other side. And you're just giving some gentle kind of towel pressure and assistance pushing through that muscle. So just playing around with reaching and then rolling through that motion there. It's sort of like getting a gentle massage right up the top of the hamstring. And this is really good if you're struggling with like middle splits, or even just wanting to give the top of the hamstring a little bit of attention, because we're focused on the position of the spine here, which is so important for hamstring length. The lumbar spine must stay neutral or upright like it normally does in regular spinal posture. Otherwise, we're just stretching our lower back muscles, not the hamstrings. Once you've sort of got a sense that that towel has kind of massaged through, move it down just a tiny bit more. And feel the difference when you go forward and then towards. Now it's okay if your sit bone on the other side comes off, depending on how much flex you've got, but just practice that same range using the weight of your chest and your head, leaning over it so you've got that sort of perpendicular pressure going down into it. And then when you're ready, take it out, and I want you to now test your forward reach and feel the difference on the side that you just massaged. Feel for any muscular sensations that feel different on that left side. Can you reach past your toes? What is the feeling? A lot of progress is internal. It's a sensation progress. It's not a range progress. It's a what does it feel from side to side. Swapping to the other leg. Same thing. Nice and high to start off with. If you want to, you can go a little wider with your straddle. And just really locking it out to start off with so that there's not any other compensation happening. Going forward until you feel that pressure going down through the towel. It should feel like the curve of the towel is like two thumbs gently pressing up. And then just kind of rock and roll. If you've got any gnarly spots or knotted bits, you can kind of rock and roll over. And towel-assisted stretching doesn't always have to be using a towel to pull or to stretch a muscle belly. It can be this kind of assisted, what I call, trying to get more reflective feedback into the body. So you're increasing that personal insight, you're increasing your awareness of what a muscle actually feels like by putting a force into it. We can do this kind of stuff for nerves as well. And again, if you're hypermobile and you get lots of tight muscles because your muscles are working hard to control the joint instability, but you're very flexible and you can just stretch that muscle without trying, this kind of limited range towel massage stuff can be really good for focusing on that. Moving it down a little bit, and again, we can go a little wider with the straddle if you want, and just playing around, keeping that chest nice and upright, playing around with getting into the parts of the muscle that we want to lengthen. If you've ever gotten sore when you've been stretching splits, if you've ever gotten sore right up near your tailbone, right up near the top of the hamstring, then this can also be a really good way for you to gently introduce that kind of stretching before you go hardcore into the muscles. Nice job. All right, to finish off today, we're just going to do one more, which is one of my favorite exercises if you've been to SNL before. You're going to shake out your towel, hold on to the corners, so grab a good bit so that you're not going to lose it. Kneeling up and kind of bending forward, you're going to sit back so that your tailbone traps the towel underneath you. So you should be able to sit up nice and tall with your legs out long in front of you. And we're using this push through the arms to connect to a sense of pelvic tip and pelvic lift. So when I sit up nice and tall, focusing on the weight of my two tailbones on either side, you can kind of sit bones rather, not your tailbone, there's no contact with my lower spine into the towel. When I round out my lower spine and I start to lower back this way, I'm feeling every part of my back in contact with the towel. Yep, and the soft kind of fleshy part of my butt is taking more of the weight. I can't feel my sit bones anymore. So I want you to just oscillate between those two positions. Push the towel, round into it, feel all of that contact, coming back until the abs are working, and feel the lower back moving away from the towel as you sit up nice and high. And this time, as you keep that forward tilt with the pelvis, no contact between the lower spine and the towel, hinging forward. So again, not rounding out, no towel contact, reaching long, fingers pushing the whole time. Rounding, coming back. You can go as low as you like if you want to work on your abs today, just before we finish. And then feel the difference as you sit tall, weight in the sit bones, and hinge forward. Again, if you've been doing this class for a while, difference between a hinge and a fold is that if you imagine a book, the pages fold and the spine hinges. So we lock out two parts of the body and we limit the movement to that one axis. Last one, really pushing through the towel, feeling that full spinal curve. And then sitting up nice and high. Just kind of rock your sit bones from side to side. Drop the towel. Roll the shoulders back. Couple of deep breaths. And nice little relaxed belly pull towards the front just to finish off. I hope that your spine feels nice and lengthened, that your leg muscles feel a bit awake, and that you've learnt some new techniques this morning. Good on you for showing up. It's a great way to start the year. I'm going to stop the recording in a second and have a chat to the students who are here live, but the next one is in 2 weeks if you want to come to the second SNL for the month. And remember to log into ACO to view the classes and make sure you click that button and get the link. I'll see you next time.